This is part two of downloading the immigration application form. And last time we talked about a checklist. This time we're going to talk about IMM0008, the generic application form for Canada. You have your PDF open. This is how the form looks like. The name of the form again is on your footer, which is IMM0008. And the version for this is June 2020. So if you find on the website one with a more later date, that means that's the latest version. So this is the one that we just downloaded from cic.gc.ca, and I'm going through the fields that you would need to enter data. The ones with asterisk are mandatory. So if you see a number there with a field that has an asterisk right before any text, that means you are not allowed to leave it blank. You need to enter information. What's good with this form is that there are drop-down options for you that you can select from. So let's say number one, you have family, economic, and refugee or other for your selections. Family, that means somebody is sponsoring you or somebody is already here in Canada and wants you to come over, either for a visit or for permanent stay. So family, let's try family so that you'll see the drop-down options that you have for number two. Number two, you have spouse, common law partner, conjugal partner, either your child or your parents, your grandparents, or niece, nephew, grandchild, or other relatives. So that's family. If you're here for economic reasons, that means you're here as a skilled worker, as a home support worker. There are several options for you. So let's just say we're coming here as a skilled worker. Okay. Now this you don't fill up. This is for the immigration agency to fill up. Number three, how many family members, including you, are in this application? Let's just say it's only two of you. Okay. So how do you prefer to receive correspondence? Is it in English or French? So I would prefer English. You can always choose French if you want to. Your interview, do you want it in a certain language? Let's say you also want it in English. You can actually find, like you find Cebuano here, or you can find Tagalog here. Let's just say you want it in English. Okay, do you need an interpreter? Yes, no. Let's say no. Where do you intend to stay in Canada? Let's just put Ontario. You have here your options. Manitoba, AB is for Alberta, BC is for British Columbia, MB is Manitoba, NB is New Brunswick, NL is Newfoundland, NS is Nova Scotia, NT is Northern Territories, NU is Nunavut, ON is Ontario, PE is Prince Edward Islands, QC is Quebec, SK is Saskatchewan, and YT is Yukon Territories. So city, town, let's just say we're going for Ontario because that's what I'm familiar with. City, town, there's drop downs for you that are the cities found in Ontario or the towns found in Ontario. I'm going for Toronto, so let's look for Toronto. So have you received your Quebec certificate selection Quebec? I actually don't know how to pronounce it. Let's just say no. If you notice this one doesn't have an asterisk, that means it's not mandatory. You can put NA here if you are not applying for the Quebec skilled worker. If yes, please indicate your number. So definitely if you got the certificate, that means you will be given a number. If no, when did you apply for your CSQ? So you have to state here when. It's in year, month, date format. Okay. So your personal details. Family name is your last name or your surname. Okay. Whatever appears on your passport, your valid passport. Given name is exactly how it's shown in your passport. So I have two names for my given name. So I put my two names here. Have you ever used any other name? Let's say I changed my name because I got married. I dropped my last name uh, prior to getting married and took my husband's last name. So I would say yes. Your last name is whatever was your last name before. Okay? And your given name should be the same, but if you had a different given name, then go ahead. UCI is your number as an applicant for immigration. This is given by cic.gc.ca. Usually they give this to you when you go ahead and do your biometrics with them. So your name, your biometrics would be in file, and they would link that UCI to whatever application you've had with them. Sex, female, male, unknown, another gender. So height should be in cm. If you notice asterisk, if you don't know how to compute for your height, go to Google and type in Google convert inches to cm, and you will have it there. Eye color, you have the drop down here. Let's choose black. Date of birth, again, it's year, month, date. City, town, whatever appears on your birth certificate. And your country, citizenship. Again, it has an asterisk. If you have two citizenships with two different countries, then go ahead and put those two here. But definitely you need one. Country of residence, that is your current location right now. So asterisk, that means it has to be accomplished. Let's say I'm coming from Singapore. And my status there is a permanent resident. Okay? So date and place of your last entry to Canada. If this is applicable, then you have to put the date here. If not, then put NA. Again, this doesn't have an asterisk, so that means it's not mandatory. But you need to put NA, not applicable, if you did not come to Canada at all. Previous country of residences for the past 5 years. If you've lived in Singapore for the past 5 years, then go ahead and just put Singapore. But if you've moved from one country to another country, then you have to put those countries here. Let's say you were in the Philippines from this period to another period, and you were in Hong Kong from this period to another period. So you have to put all those countries that you have moved from one location to another for the last 5 years. Okay? So now we go to page 2. You always have to put your applicant name and date of birth on the succeeding pages so that they know that even if one page gets lost in transit or gets lost while they're reviewing your documents, whoever that is, they can always go back and look for the applicant name and the date of birth at the top to match those pages. So what is your current marital status? Choose from any of those, and then when were you married? Provide the name of your spouse, the current spouse. Have you been previously married? You can say yes or no depending on what really is your status. So type of relationship, you may have been married or it was a common law partnership, and you put in the details. Again, asterisk, that means you have to provide an answer. Contact information. So this is your address. The mandatory is the street name because some countries, they don't have apartment unit or street number. Street name, city, town. postal code, district code. So this is your mailing address, and the second one is your residential address. Is it the same? You can say yes if it's the same, or no. For example, you want your mailing address to be your office and your residential address is totally different. So telephone, you give your contact numbers here. Alternate telephone number, if this is applicable, then go ahead. Fax number, email address. So your passport details. So make sure you have your passport handy to get all the details. Is it valid? That means it's not expired. You say yes. Passport travel document number, whatever is the number on your passport. Country of issue. Let's say you got your Philippine passport from the Singapore office. So you put Singapore here. Issue date, expiry date. Whatever is on your passport. Again, there are drop downs so you can choose. Will you use a passport issued by Taiwan? Say no if this is applicable to you. For this trip, will you use the national Israeli passport? Say no or yes depending on if this is valid for you. Okay, again, it has an asterisk. That means you either have to say yes or no. If your passport is Israeli or Taiwanese, then you have to say yes or no. Do you have a national identity document? Some countries have a national ID system. So if this is applicable for your country, then say yes. And what is that document number? That means what's your ID number? Country of issue, and my country of issue is Philippines. When was it issued? The date and does it expire? Say go ahead, put an expiry. Now we're on page 3, applicant name, date of birth. Make sure you put this at the top. Do not miss that out because it's easier. Your application might be considered null if there's an empty field that you did not put in your data. Education occupational detail. So you choose here from the drop down what is your highest level of education. Let's say you are a graduate of a bachelor's degree. So number of years of education in total, you include your nursery, prep, kindergarten years here. So normally you have grades 1 to 12. So that's 12 years of education already. If you went and earlier than grades 1 to 12, let's say you attended nursery and kindergarten, so add 2 years to it, that makes it 14 years. So if you had a bachelor's degree that took you 4 years to finish, so that's 18 years of education. Current occupation, what's your title in your current job? Intended occupation, what do you intend to work on when you go to Canada? Native language, mother tongue, you can choose from the selection here. There should be one that is applicable to you. Are you able to communicate in English or both? You can always select both. English, French, or both. In which language are you most at ease? Let's say we put English. Have you taken a test from a designated testing agency to assess your proficiency in English or French? If you've taken IELTS or if you've taken that French test, then you have to say yes or no if not. Here, dependents, you have to include your spouse or your common law partner. So the one at the top was the principal applicant. Now we are on page 3, which is your dependent. It can be a spouse. The same information that you put in your details, now it's your spouse's details. So family name, given name. If your spouse changed their name, say yes. UCI, your spouse would also have a different UCI. It is not the same as yours. So when you did the biometrics, your spouse would also have their own biometrics. And when you enter it in cic.gc.ca, they'll give you a UCI. It's the client identifier. I just forgot what U stands for. Sex, choose from the drop down. Height, again, the requirement is in cm, so do the conversion on cm. Eye color, choose your eye color here, whichever is applicable. Date of birth, year, month, date, city, town, country, those are all mandatory. Citizenship, just one at least. Relationship to the applicant, principal applicant, you can choose whatever is on the drop down. Let's say you are the spouse. Okay, will accompany principal applicant to Canada? Yes or no, depending on you. Definitely yes. For my case, it was a yes. Reason why dependent is non-accompanying. You state the reason why he's not accompanying or she's not accompanying. Dependent type. So your dependent type is A, B, or C. And choose one that is applicable for you. Okay, country. Again, this is now for your spouse or whoever you're putting here. If it's your child and maybe they've stayed only in the Philippines for the last 5 years. So if your dependent is in the Philippines, then go ahead and choose Philippines. If your dependent is in UAE, go ahead and choose UAE. So status, is he a worker or a student? Let's say your son is still a student in the Philippines. Choose Philippines and student. And then from what year to this date. Okay? And did they ever enter Canada? If this is applicable, put a date. If not, then not applicable. So applicant name, that's still your name. Okay? At the top of the page, that's always your name. Whoever is the principal applicant. So, but these entries here are for your dependent now. Has he moved from one country to another country for the past 5 years? And it's for more than 6 months, okay? So if it's just for a vacation for 5 days, then don't put it. Marital status, is this dependent married? Is he divorced? Is he single? So put all those data here. And if your dependent is married, who's the spouse? Okay. And if the dependent was previously married or was in a common law relationship, then you have to fill this one in too. So passport details now of that dependent. So same questions are, is he or she working with a Taiwanese document or Israeli passport? Then you have to say yes, yes, or no, no, or yes, no. National identity, again, if your country has an ID system, you have to put that here. Educational attainment for your dependent. Language detail for your dependent. If you have more dependents, then go ahead, add more, and those fields will populate again. Page 5 of 5, again, on the top of your page, put your applicant name and your date of birth. And this one, do you consent that you will be contacted by CIC or a representative of the organization? Say yes. Consent to release information to intended province, territory. So your first name, last name, say yes. Usually these are yes, but you please read before you say yes. Do you really agree? And do you really give your consent? Then sign, put the date. Validate everything. Sign, put the date, and validate. So this video tackled only filling up the fields for the generic application form. Another video of mine that I will upload is troubleshooting, or if you encounter errors or problems opening the file, how going about the file. There are some links that I can share to you and how to go around those links. Watch that video.
I hope you learned something today. Pang ka na dyan, signing off. Hi, on this video, hi,